Welcome back to 100 Days of Turning My Hackathon Idea into Reality. Today's day 8, and today we've successfully modified environments so that we can run machine learning on my laptop. So, funny enough, today didn't go how I was planning at all. I thought I was actually going to be setting up my environment to install TensorFlow and work with TensorFlow as my main machine learning setup. But it turns out that there were some issues, and I'll explain that later. And I have gone in a completely different direction than I was expecting for today, which honestly is fine, all things considered. So let's just get right into it.
Hey everybody. So today kind of starts off with a continuation of what happened yesterday. Last time I kind of gave up on installing TensorFlow after some errors popped up and a lot of frustrations. And so today I went into it expecting to basically download TensorFlow, right? Get it on my device and be able to use it. So here you see me just going through Geeks for Geeks, following this tutorial on installing TensorFlow. And I think here I basically just looking for all of the steps, right? Um, Eventually I'm going to check what version of Python I have right here, just one more time. I know I did this last or yesterday, but it doesn't hurt to check one more time, and I see that I have 3.11, which is perfectly fine for TensorFlow. And so I check my pip version as well, not a big deal. And so I find that everything works fine, and so I run the commands to install TensorFlow. And I run into a little bit of an error. And this is because my file path for where my TensorFlow is going to go is way too long. And based on like presets in the Windows system, it doesn't allow for super long file paths. But this can be overridden. I just have to change some values within the Windows system. And so here I'm just reading about that, making sure that I understand what I'm doing before I make any changes to my, I guess, device, but in my case it's my laptop, right? Yeah, so I see that I have to change this value set to 1. I'm just going back and forth, making sure that everything looks right. Yeah, and then searching stuff up. I first try to go to just the regular system to change this value because apparently at some point you could do that, but I don't know if it's still a thing anymore. It is pretty high levels and most people won't come across it. And so I guess they just don't put it in there in the regular settings, and that's fine. I tried the PowerShell, but it doesn't work. So I use the registry editor. Go in, just go to like my necessary stuff. And then within file system, there is, yeah, long paths enabled, just switch that to 1. And then I have to restart my computer. And so this is after the restart, I believe. Yeah. This is after the restart. I basically go back in, I run the command again, and it's going to attempt to re-download TensorFlow. And here it says install TensorFlow, so that's fine. And so I check to see if TensorFlow has correctly down or installed by checking to see if it finds my GPU. And here is the main reason I changed directions today. If you saw there, it returned an empty list, essentially. And that's not very good because that means it's not recognizing the GPU I have in my computer. Essentially, what's supposed to happen is that TensorFlow is supposed to like find my GPU that I have in my computer. In my case, that's an RTX 2060, and it's just not doing it. This causes this means a lot of issues. And the biggest one is that if it's not using my GPU, it's going to use my CPU instead, and so it's going to be super, super slow. And I also probably won't really be able to do much else while I'm utilizing my CPU on TensorFlow. Uh, and so I'm just checking through everything one more time to make sure that I'm doing the TensorFlow install properly, just to make sure it wasn't an issue on my end. Just checking one more time, and I'll reinstall TensorFlow, and then I'll check it one more time, and it's still coming up as a blank. And so I go to Reddit for answers. Um, like any good coder, right? I go to Reddit and I go to Stack Overflow. And I read through a lot of stuff where reportedly the new versions of TensorFlow past 2.1, I believe it was, they don't utilize Windows local GPUs anymore. So any GPUs that you have in your computer or your device, they just won't use. It was something to do with like not having to deal with a bunch of different GPUs. You can read about it if you really want to, but point is that ever since basically 2023, 2024, TensorFlow no longer uses local GPUs, and so that's going to be a pretty big problem for me. So eventually, I get to this Reddit post, and I see that apparently people are starting to port over to either JAX or PyTorch, and so from here, I'm like, okay, well, clearly TensorFlow might not work. Here I'm just taking some points on that. They lost support in 2023, and they don't work with local GPUs on Windows anymore. They still work with Linux, but I'm not on a Linux system, so that doesn't really matter. And so I'm considering basically moving away from TensorFlow here. I do find PyTorch as an option, and that was another option that was kind of on my mind in the first place anyway. Here, I'm looking through some of the comments on my YouTube videos because some of my viewers have been giving me some advice, and I'd really appreciate it. I thought somebody gave some advice on this, but apparently not. But it didn't hurt to check anyway. And so here, I'm basically just reading through some Reddit threads about whether or not I should be using PyTorch. And it looks like the large majority is agreeing that PyTorch is a good idea. And I also find this website for neural networks, where a guy basically teaches neural networks. And so I'll probably link that in the description. And also, yeah, I'll also be looking at it in the future as well. And so I decided to start essentially installing PyTorch instead. And this time, now that, my head is clearer and I'm not kind of pissed off because stuff is going wrong and there's a bunch of rabbit holes that I'm running down, it goes pretty smoothly. I still have to read through some stuff, still taking a little bit of time going back and forth, making sure I understand what's happening. But this time, everything looks pretty clean. Everything seems just fine, right? I copy over the command and it starts downloading. It's going to take a little bit to download, but once it downloads, basically everything works super, super well, and I don't really run into any issues for the rest of the day. And so, let's see. It's going to take a little while, but basically we install PyTorch, and that was my main goal for today was to get something or install some system that will let me work with machine learning. And so this is absolutely perfect, right? PyTorch is one of the many ways I could be working with machine learning systems. And the fact that I now have it installed on my device means that I can work with it locally rather than on like a Google Colab page. So that's fantastic. I'm very, very glad that I have this now because I can use it to work for the future. You see here, I get this red error. It is kind of a problem, but it's a problem with TensorFlow. And so I'm not super worried about it. I'm not trying to use TensorFlow, and I think it probably won't come into a problem in the future anyway. Basically, there is an incompatible version that TensorFlow can't use. But that's fine for PyTorch. Like, PyTorch doesn't care about that. And so I just don't really care. I run the test for PyTorch, and everything looks pretty good. So yeah, that was basically everything for today.
So yeah, that's everything for today. I know it was a little bit fast paced there at the end, but essentially what it boiled down to was I found out that TensorFlow basically isn't getting a whole lot of support anymore, and largely probably won't work super well for me as a small scale like development team. I need to use like local stuff because I don't have entire system set up yet. And so I don't really want to be using something like TensorFlow that is going to require a lot more work to get support for. That's going to make things super, super difficult, and I really just don't want to have to do it. And there is the argument that I could work with TensorFlow on Google Colab, which is fantastic, it's fine. But if I want to be able to use this outside of that and be able to use it in a program that I can port over to other systems, I don't want to be stuck in Google Colab, right? I want to be able to use a system that is going to be able to go anywhere. And so, yeah, that's basically why I decided to move away from TensorFlow. So I then moved over to PyTorch, and it looks like PyTorch is going to work perfectly fine. In the future, I think I'm going to be following more tutorials on how to use PyTorch in order to make sure that I can use it effectively. And that might take a few days before I start kind of using it for my own backend. But until then, that's basically all I have for today. I'm very, very glad that this ended up working out. And I'm super, super happy that yesterday I did end up deciding to kind of take a break and stop and give up for the day. Because, like, I think if I kept going yesterday, it would have taken absolutely forever. And today I just kind of sat down, was super, super locked in, and just got it done really quickly. Didn't run into any frustrations, didn't run into any roadblocks, and everything that I kind of found to be an issue was able to be resolved super quickly. And I think for part that is because um, I just have a clear head today. And I'm glad that when I didn't have a clear head, I gave myself the chance to take a break. But yeah, that's all I have for today. I'll hopefully have tons of work in the future, but a lot of it might be following tutorials as I'm learning how to use machine learning more effectively. Um, but we'll see what happens. Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, I'll still be able to make something fun out of it. Whatever, not a big deal. All right, for now, have a good one. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.